It appears we need to go through how the Hollywood box office works for some people. I'm not naming any names, but there are a few folks over on X who are clearly misinformed as to how the financials break down. We're going to talk about Fantastic Four First Steps box office returns today because it's just had its first weekend. But I do want to get into Superman as well because it's very, very bad in my opinion. For a film that's supposed to herald a new beginning for DC on film, it's not going well. Now before I do that, and speaking of X, you can follow me over there at Dave Cullen Show. So I'm on X at Dave Cullen Show. So I've seen a few people posting what Superman has grossed so far. Now, as per Box Office Mojo, it's made $502 million worldwide at the time of making this video, and people have also posted that the budget is $225 million, as if to suggest that the film has now broken even. Now, this is just a painfully ignorant understanding of the situation. Firstly, that $225 million is merely the film's production budget. The film also had a marketing budget on top of that, and the marketing costs were in excess of $100 million. They could have been $150 million, but I'll be kind and I'll say it's just $100 million. Secondly, and it's shocking the amount of people don't realize this, cinemas don't put films on out of the goodness of their hearts. They split the revenue with the studios, okay? In the US, studios receive only 50% of the gross, and it's about 30% of the international gross, okay? That means Warner Brothers has not received $502 million at the box office from Superman, okay? That's just what the film made. So let's break it down. The film made $289,501,578 domestically and over $213 million internationally. So when you half the domestic take, you get about $144.7 million. And 1/3 of the international take is about $71 million. So that's about $216 million. So that film has not quite pulled back its production costs. So the film needs also to recoup the marketing costs, as I've mentioned, and that's a further $100 million. And obviously, because of how revenue is split between theaters and studios, the film needs to make a further $200 million in order to recoup that $100 million in marketing costs. This is the reason people said, quite rightly, that Superman needed to make $700 million in order to just break even. That's before it generates a profit. So I think the biggest issue now is this. The third weekend has just finished for Superman. This, of course, was the weekend that Fantastic Four opened. So Superman would have been negatively affected by that somewhat, and clearly it was. Domestically, Superman earned $7.1 million on Friday the 25th of July, $9.8 million on Saturday the 26th, and $7.9 million on Sunday the 27th. And that's only a little more than the film is making during the week. So, for example, on Wednesday, July 23rd, it made $6.6 million. On Thursday, July 24th, it made $4.79 million. So the daily earnings aren't great, and the weekends are just going to continue to decline now. And I think the film can reach $600 million during its theatrical run, maybe a little over $600 million, but $700 million looks like a bit of a tall order at this point. Comparisons have been made with Man of Steel. This has been part of the kind of cultural war at the moment between James Gunn Superman fans and Zack Snyder fans. I'm not going to get into any of that. I think a lot of it's cringe, to be honest. But I'm afraid there is no real comparison here. Man of Steel didn't do great at the box office either. Back in 2013, that's 12 years ago, it's a long time, it made $670 million. But that film has to be adjusted for inflation. $670 million from 2013 in 2025 dollars is $927.9 million. Superman is obviously not going to make that, okay? So it's shocking that these films are just so unprofitable at this point, and yet they're expected to launch new franchises. It's quite astounding. Look, maybe what we need is a total change at Hollywood, right? Just a radically different creative direction and new people at this stage. Because the same old ideas every few years are just not working. And I think we've all gotten used to storytelling in a particular mode, styles and genres of filmmaking and story ideas that have gotten stale. And it's time for something innovative, something new, something unique, because it's all just very generic and safe. And that's just not inspiring people to go to the cinema anymore in the numbers that they used to do. So here's a wild idea. Maybe stop making films about superheroes that we've seen a billion times before, and maybe make something original, right? Something totally new. Because, of course, there's a risk there with something new, because it means starting from scratch and not tapping into an existing fan base. But so what? Clearly these films aren't making enough money. More often than not, they're losing studios money. So it's not like the existing fan bases are really helping, is it? And maybe it might also be a good idea to make cheaper films that don't need to make eye-watering amounts of money at the box office just to break even. Crazy idea, but there you go. The Fantastic Four First Steps made $118 million domestically on its opening weekend, and $100 million internationally, for a total of $218 million worldwide. The reported budget for the film is $200 million. Of course, I wouldn't be surprised if it was more than that, but that's all we have to go on. And the marketing costs were probably over $100 million as well. So Fantastic Four First Steps finds itself basically in exactly the same situation that Superman is. More or less. Superman made slightly more on its opening weekend. It made $125 million, but there's only a very small difference there. Whichever film makes the most money of the two, there's going to probably be very little between them in the end. I remember in the 1990s and the early 2000s, when studios could rely on home releases of a film, VHS and DVD copies, to help make up for any financial underperformance and shortcomings during the theatrical run. But unfortunately, they can't really rely on DVD and Blu-ray sales to do that now, because most people don't buy them anymore. People are less invested in physical media. I'm sure the die-hard film fans will buy DVDs and Blu-rays, but the average person is content to have digital copies of films or make use of a streaming service, which I've mentioned before I think is a terrible idea, because you have no idea when a film or TV show can be pulled from that streaming service for any number of reasons. And it's not like a film on a streaming service is ownership of that film. You don't own it. You're basically renting it, along with the back catalogue of all the other films and television shows on that service. That's why having your own actual copy of a film or TV show, physical media, is preferable. Studios can't rely on the home release market to help bolster them financially. So it just compounds the situation further when a film underperforms at the box office. Now, I'm not saying that Fantastic Four is a flop at the moment. It's only just had its first weekend, and things can change. But look, going on past experience, we can predict what the future trends are likely to be for this film. Anyway, no matter how people try to slice it, the new DC universe is not off to a good start. And so far, Fantastic Four First Steps has had a mid-tier opening weekend. For all the hype about the film, the opening weekend just hasn't been strong enough. I'm wondering why First Steps opened to such a middling weekend, actually, especially given the amount of money that was spent on the marketing for it. For it to open just slightly behind Superman domestically, I think it's very interesting. It could be that the average cinema goer chose to see just one big superhero movie this month, i.e. Superman, or it could be that First Steps trailers just didn't inspire people to go and see it. Or it could be that recent MCU films haven't been great, and so the brand is just not as strong as it used to be. The pulling power just isn't there. Well, whatever it is, I'm interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Please let me know what you think. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, hit that notification bell to be notified of future updates as well. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, guys. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.